Amphitrite watched the man before her, his dark chestnut hair blowing in the wind as he looked at her over his shoulder. His wide-eyed expression was almost comical, or it would have been, at least, if he weren't standing less than 20 yards from a tsunami that would have utterly decimated the city of Halcyon. If not for him. In a quick move, she threw her hands out in front of her. Her power flowed from her veins, lighting up her ring as she pushed the water back. She pressed forward, stepping toward the wall of water. She did not want to even think about the sea life and human lives lost due to this unnatural occurrence. With each step she took, the water retreated. It churned behind its self-contained wall, and she frowned at the trace of power she felt there. She neared the man and got a closer look at his profile. Shock and recognition bowled through her. How? I have no fucking idea, he replied frantically, his eyes still on the water as it fell back onto the seafloor. She could tell he'd assumed her confusion was solely for the stymied tsunami, which rocked several boats with angry, choppy waves as it moved past the docks. Oceanus. He had unbound him without her knowledge. Her rage rose to the surface as she watched the Titan. The one who should have been bound and without the ability to access his power, stand before her. This after he'd held the sea in the palm of his hands. Literally. Her mind whirled with questions. How had Oceanus broken the oath to unbind his son? And this was his son. She knew. She recognized not only the feeling of his power, but also his features, his face. She had kept her distance, but her spies kept her abreast of his movements. She knew where he had gone, what he had done. When she'd learned that the dormant Titan had fled the city upon his 21st birthday, she had caved on demanding he be called back to Halcyon. Oceanus hadn't elaborated, but the boy had been traumatized. Something in her had softened when it should have gone cold. Millennia ago, she hadn't made it to adulthood as a mortal, instead born into godhood with blood and trauma. And so, she had allowed him more time to experience life. The unbinding could wait, she'd told herself. Her sentimentality bit her in the ass like Hera always warned it would. Now, 6 years later, he stood before her, with raw, unbound power simmering around him, past the age of ascendancy. This is what she got for making a deal with the Titan. However mad she was, she could not go to Oceanus at this moment to demand his explanation. She knew, deep down, her sister was in trouble. The plan had been for her to meet at the gates at the base of the mountain that led to the river Styx, but then she'd watched a wall of lethal water heading toward the city. Even now, she could still feel her sister's pull in the underworld as the water writhed against her power. Looking at where the massive wave had lost its ground, revealing washed-up detritus on the streets, she sensed a tension churning in the seawater. A sentient force, a power different than her own, or even the Titans beside her. She felt her temper rise even higher at the thought that someone stood by, using her water against her. She pushed out more power, stalking around the air still frozen in shock, and moved to calm the sea. Pushing power into her ring, the one given to her by the Cyclops, she felt the water ease. The resistance snapped, and the sea submitted to her will. She felt the ocean's relief alongside her own at the give. Whatever was pushing against her had finally relented, and the water slowly crept back into the bay from where the tension had held it hostage further out along the seafloor after retreating from the city. She looked across the area, taking in the damage until her eyes finally met his. The man stood still, his hands finally lowering as he realized the water was no longer a threat. Her feet carried her to him before she even thought about it. The danger of the tsunami may have been neutralized, but another problem remained. "Heir of Oceanus," she called, her voice raised in challenge. Confusion and exhaustion warred on his face.